Exciting time for us and all of us involved in IPSF. Where I'm actually not going to introduce the panel, they're going to quickly introduce themselves. That's what we decided. So you two are sharing that mic. So Terry, why don't you start?
Okay. Terry Walker. I've heard about this community before. I think I've seen some of you. Thank you for being here. 14 years in Irvine as superintendent and almost 30 years in the school district. And now currently working at the Orange County Department of Ed, trying to help them to better align their resources to support all 28 school districts in Orange County.
Stephen Wong, I'm a dermatologist and director of AI Health at Hoag Clinic. First time here, I've been in California for the last 4 years, and this is a great honor to be a part of this community.
Hi, my name is Abhi Gupta. I work at Google on AI products, so I work in this building. I'm good friends with Heidi, who helped organize this. She and I do karaoke together, and Heidi is amazing at karaoke, let me tell you.
Gonna be a party.
It's an honor to be invited to this, and I'm looking forward to sharing how we can all partner and help AI, or help shape our kids' education with AI. So I'm looking forward to the talk.
Hi, I'm Shani Valencia. I'm the Director of Learning Design, Differentiation, and AI Integration for the Irvine Unified School District. Previous to my current role, I was the Coordinator of Educational Technology and a classroom teacher in IUSD.
Excellent. Well, that's our panelists. The panel today is nominally about AI, but I want to kind of set a little context. It's really about technology and education. I think it's really important. Artificial intelligence, I like to say, is artificial. It's not intelligent. And there's a lot of different things it can do. And it is a lot of different things. It's fundamentally a way of computer programming. It's a computer program. For the purposes of our discussion today, we're going to focus, if you're not an expert, on large language models, which is a particular type of computer programming in AI that many people now know as GPT or all the various other things that pretends to talk to you. So we're going to focus on that, but I do want to start with a very quick question for Steve to give us a little framing. We're going to go with Steve for some framing and then Shani. And just so you know, this is going to be exactly 30 minutes or less, except my very exciting watch told me it has low power battery mode. So I'm also going to be looking at you, Netta, occasionally. Yeah, and there are cards. We do this very old school. We have you write on cards for your questions, and we collect those to answer. AI will be processing them. But Steve, we know that these large language models did not arrive from a vacuum. There's been a long history of this sort of work. AI has been around for a relatively long time. So just to give the audience some context, briefly describe like AI in medicine and then the reaction LLMs caused, because large language models were not the original use of AI in medicine.
You're absolutely right, and this is not the first time the industry, especially in healthcare, is trying to dabble with the power of AI. In fact, about 25 years ago, I was involved with the startups. We actually were the first company got FDA approval to create an algorithm, create a hardware to detect and diagnose melanoma, but it didn't work. That we were just using neural network, so it's very rudimentary. So over the last, I would say, 5-10 years, and you can see this exponential progress. And I think the difference this time versus in the future, the past, is the speed. The speed, it's absolutely dazzling.
Excellent. Also for context, I mean, we talk about AI, large language models, but really what we're talking about is technology and education. And this question's for you, Shani. Even though LLMs feel like a bit of a surprise, we also know that's not a vacuum in education either. Technology's been integrating into education for a while. Can you maybe comment briefly on, even though we've been using technology for a while, why does this feel new? And what are you really hearing from the teachers and students about what makes this so new?
I think kind of a similar piece in terms of the speed, but education is no stranger to technological advancements over the last few decades. I think what makes generative AI so different and kind of that record skip moment for many teachers is that previously the sorting, processing, synthesizing of information and creating something new from it was really reserved for people on the most part. And that is how the learning experience was measured in a lot of cases. And with generative AI, that process of synthesizing vast amounts of information and creating something new from it it's now done in a second. And that has really made education and educational institutions take a pause and say, whoa, what does this mean for learning? What does this mean for education? How can we leverage it? And also, what do we have to rethink as well? So I think that the speed and the amount of information and the access to that is what makes us different.
Excellent. And if I just add a little to that, I was on a panel yesterday nationally for universities, and a similar comment was made. It was really interesting. One of my colleagues pointed out, we always knew the process was where students learn, but we measured the product. And now the challenge is AI can make the product, and that's one of the stresses, is like we can't use the product to measure the process anymore. So how do we get at the process? How do we make sure students understand the process they need to do so that they're actually learning? But great, thank you, Shani. Now, this is lightning round 1 for the panel, where you all get to answer. And the question is, what is the most surprising thing about AI, generative AI, from a quote, wow, this is exciting, quote, perspective for you? We'll just start with you, Terry, and go down the panel.
Sure. I mean, I think one of the things that's surprising for all of us is just how quickly this is clearly showing itself to be something that's not going away. It's going to be something that's part of our culture, part of our business world, part of education, and we all need to adapt to it. And usually we have a little bit more of a runway for that, so it feels a little bit more comfortable. We can kind of get out ahead of it, do some professional development, we can talk about it. And now this is happening so quickly, and it's such a disruptive technology that people are having to kind of re-examine how do we get out in front of this. And so I had the great, maybe the only superintendent in the state to be on both the California School Board Association AI Task Force for the state, as well as the AXA, Association of California School Administrators AI Task Force. And in all of those spaces, and even with the experts in AI, what people are concerned about is that it's moving so quickly, and yet for sure being utilized in industry in our world. And we need to prepare kids for the future, and we know for sure this is going to be part of that future. So it's one of those moments where we need to be talking more frequently, more consistently, and especially people who are concerned and happy about it. We all need to come together, design guardrails, design opportunities, and maximize this powerful tool. And I know at UCI, a lot of your colleagues are doing a lot of work about how if we don't do that, there's a whole group of students, including our most at-risk students, there will be opportunity gaps, there will be equity gaps, because they don't have access to this powerful tool and don't have the opportunity to see how it might change their own life or help them pursue their interests as young people heading out into the world.
I think first thing is, in the beginning, you realize how bad it is in terms of doing mathematical calculations. That's very surprising. At the same time, you realize how good it is in terms of being empathetic and they understand you want to praise you, right? This is the most alarming aspect of it, because we know that AI is going to be better than us in terms of gathering information, synthesizing information, the speed, agility, the power. But at the same time, it's a threat. That is, how can we as a human become more empathetic? How do we compete? In a way, we're supposed to be better emotional, that we're supposed to own that domain, but we are inferior to the natural language model.
As a product manager and engineer, I'll start with code. I think many folks here have at least written one line of code. The thing about computer programs, as you mentioned, they love exactness and deterministic behavior. So if you got even one comma wrong or one semicolon wrong, the computer program crashes, it breaks. That's not the case with AI. AI loves ambiguity, it loves messiness, it loves chaos. And human beings kind of are the same. We thrive in that. And I think that's the opportunity and the aha moment here. Instead of feeling scared that my 11-year-old or my 7-year-old will have AI think for her or for them, can she think alongside AI? Can she throw a messy, complicated problem like, how do I build a treehouse in my backyard and think alongside AI? No, that's not going to work because that's not how the land is. And you have a really smart, infinitely patient listening board that you can riff with. That's the aha moment for me. It's like, oh wow, I have an AI coach slash tutor slash partner that I can work with. And I think the goal for all of us as parents and educators is, how can we teach our children, how can our schools and teachers teach our children to use AI to help make them better thinkers and not have AI think for them?
So that's a great place for me to build off of. I think in terms of that, what has felt so surprising, or that aha moment, is that jagged frontier, as even Malik calls it, of AI. In terms of, there are some things that it does really well, and there are some things that it doesn't do quite well yet, and that is changing all the time. It's almost impossible to kind of stay ahead of what AI is capable of. So instead of feeling like we have to be out in front of the capabilities, it's really around teaching our students and our teachers how the learning process takes place and where these tools are capable of enhancing that learning process. So that aha moment is, wow, this tool can be capable of some incredible things that we just didn't have the capability before. And there are some things that it's not so great at. How do we kind of take the wheel in judging where and when to use it to enhance our humanness and our learning?
Excellent. And this is the one question I'll answer also. I think the wow, it's exciting for me realization is that expertise actually matters, and we have it and AI doesn't. And what do I mean by that? What AI is very, very good at, has been mentioned by everyone here, is amazing at synthesizing data, bringing it together, and making connections and doing things, which computer programs have always tried to do and always have been better recently than us, faster. And now it's just taken another leap forward. So it has a very different feel to it. But I have not come across an example yet where AI was used well that didn't rely on the human expertise that was using AI, which for me is so exciting, because that means I have job security, because you get expertise from going to an awesome K through 12 district and then an amazing university like UC Irvine. So rather than feeling threatened by AI, I recognize that we become even more critical. Now we have to do our jobs better, we have to do our jobs right, but it's the generating of expertise, which is what education is meant to do, that is incredibly exciting and remains true. So just to give everyone an idea, that was our intro segment. Now we are transitioning, for full transparency, to the what are we doing now segment of this panel. And there's a question for each of you. I'm going to go in the order on my piece of paper here. So Shani, you get the first question. Can you describe one way you see AI really helping teachers do their job better, and one thing that teachers are using AI for that has a significant impact on students? And remember, we only have 10 minutes for this segment, so you don't get a lot of time to answer your questions, panel.
Okay, well, I could speak all night about it and showcase the amazing things that we're seeing in our classrooms and quote research and everything else. So I'll try to keep it succinct. But if you want to talk to me later, I'd love to chat. So in terms of what are our teachers doing that is transformative, that's really changing that learning experience for students, I'll focus on the same example for both. There's so many examples, like I said, but the one that comes to mind is I was in a 4th grade class recently, and the teacher, as our teachers do, was masterfully designing the learning experience. And a component of that learning experience was a student activity on a platform that we have and approved for students called Snorkel. And this particular classroom was using it for a math activity. And in most of our classrooms, we have a variety of different learners, diverse backgrounds, different language levels. And what this teacher did ahead of time was the teacher tailored this tool to give it feedback and say, this is how I want you to coach the students forward. This is what I'm looking for the learning objectives. These students can use the coach that's available in the tool to guide them through in their native language, because they're maybe just learning the language and I don't want that to get in the way of their cognitive load. These students are a little bit further along in their language journey, and so they can talk to you in English, but you can talk back to them in their native language. And so each student kind of had this personalized journey for a math activity. They could draw, they could record their voice, they were getting feedback along the way. And it was amazing to walk into the room and see the kids kind of talking through with the tool, expressing their thinking, and the tool kind of gives them feedback, and the students couldn't wait to try it again, to take that feedback and keep going with it. All the while, unbeknownst to the students, the teacher is getting live feedback and insights about the student progress. And as a classroom teacher, this would take me at least a day to get that feedback back to all of my students and regroup and change the learning experience. The teacher could do that in the moment to see, okay, these students, this is where they're missing the learning, this is where the students are getting it, and the teacher could make that lesson really dynamic and intervene right away. So just that component within this 15-minute experience that the students had transformed the entire learning journey in a way that we just never had access to before.
That is awesome. Thank you. So, Terry, you get to go next. Because you're building on what Shani just said.
Okay.
Given what you know Shani's doing and Irvine is doing in IUSD, how are we fitting into the larger educational landscape in this space of AI?
I mean, I think it's one of those moments where, like I said before, we all need to be talking to one another, because things are going to continue to change at a pace where we can't afford to just kind of come together every once in a while, and once a year, and kind of say, what are you working on? And because right now, whatever you're using, I don't know whether it's Claude or Chat GPT or Copilot or Gemini or any of those, we know what you're using now and the amazing experiences you're having now with it being your thought partner, or your, designing business models or graphics or really funny posters for your friends, whatever you're using it for. A year from now, think about how much more powerful it's going to be. So I think, and again, what do we do? And especially in Irvine Unified, we're preparing people for the future. And right now, we don't even know what that future looks like, right? Even experts in AI are like, what's going to happen next? They're kind of like, I don't know. And that's kind of terrifying. And it just means we need to lean into this. Organizations like Irvine Unified School District, who are already so far ahead in this, need to kind of blaze the trail and help other districts to find those kinds of opportunities. And I think that's just where we're at right now. And I know change is hard. It creates conflict, and it creates opportunities to reflect on what we're working on. But if we don't do it in a place like this, where we have access to amazing universities and higher ed, as well as the top companies in the world, with the greatest school district that's ever existed, all working together with amazing partners to help kind of support and accelerate that work, I think it's troubling to me. There's a sense of urgency I'm not sure everyone has. I have it. And again, I interact with people across this whole ecosystem, and I think we're on the right path. And most people are not. They think they've got time, and I would argue we really don't. This is a fairly urgent thing. And again, not just to accelerate the power of this tool, but also to design the guardrails to make sure we weave in the ethics and all those kinds of things that are also an important consideration.
Perfect. Okay, Stephen, you're next. Knowing what you do about generative AI, LLMs, and AI in general, what advice do you have for parents and kids about what they need to be doing as they think about their education right now? That's a big one, I know, a lot of pressure.
First of all, I don't have any qualification as an educator. Let's start with that. A couple of things right off the bat. I think we shouldn't tell the kids to depend on AI. But we should be basically get the kids to understand the responsibility, judgment, etc. Second, whatever we are teaching the kids right now has to change. We're at this inflection point. There's a paradigm shift. In the past, we're building knowledge, building the skill, prepare them for the future. There's a job out there waiting for them. For instance, I'm a physician. Take me 15 years to be who I am. We don't know if the job is going to be there. Instead, I think we should be teaching them about the universal human quality and traits, such as adaptabilities, resiliency, creativities, judgment, wisdom. And all those is very nebulous, and it takes years of life experience to build. And how do we transform the school system and to build and shape those characters? I don't have the answers.
Oh, but no, I think that was great advice. We at the school system will figure out how to do it. Relax, parents, you're okay. But Abik, you thought that was a hard question. I got the hard one for you. From what you see at Google, what advice do you have for schools for dealing with the pace of change? And even better, because I know Netta would love this, I know Terry would love this, I know Shani would love it, what strategies make sense and what partnerships should we look for?
I love that. You've all seen those LinkedIn posts, right? Oh, I've set up an AI agent. It's answering all my emails. It's doing all my work for me. I'm actually on the beach right now. And you see that and you get panicked. You're like, am I behind? Am I the only one who doesn't know how to use AI? If you feel behind, raise your hand. Because the answer is all of us feel behind. Google, we are working on AI. I work on AI every day, all day. I feel behind because it's changing all the time. So the answer for my team wasn't that we sat down and we made a 5-year plan for how AI should influence our product development. That wasn't it. We didn't do that. And I don't think IPSF should either. What I did with my team was, hey, instead of debating how AI should shape our product development, why don't we try an experiment? Let's try a 2-week experiment. And that's exactly what we did. I went out and I asked for volunteers and I said, I need 3 teams of 3 people each, 1 engineer, 1 PM, and 1 UX designer. And you're going to ship a Google product to customers using only AI and nothing else. That was the challenge to them. And I asked them to pick a project that would take 6 weeks and do it in 2. I got 10 teams signed up instead of 3 because everyone wanted in. They wanted to learn how to do it. Google is learning how to do it just like everyone else is. And so my answer to this question is, try an experiment in your classroom, at your school. Make it a 2-week experiment. Don't come up with a 5-year program, $1 million budget, because it doesn't make sense. Before the ink is dry on the budget, AI has changed the game. So run a 2-week experiment on learning tools, education tools, and look at the data, look at the results, and then iterate and run the next experiment. And that's how we all learn, and that's how we iterate to what our kids need to learn as well.
Excellent, I love that. So you heard it here first. Think about funding 2-week projects at schools to experiment with AI. Google's told us to do that. That was not me. I'm just saying. Just saying. Yeah, that was my AI chatbot summarizing the conversation. Okay, so now we transition to where are we going? And Netta, have people turned in questions just so I can? Okay, perfect. We'll be kind of quick with this one, and then I'll see what questions we have. So we're going to start with Steve this time, actually. Now, you've already addressed this a little bit, Steve, but just thinking future forward, thinking about, you mentioned you had to get a specific expertise to be a physician in the past. What might you see people having to do? Let's even just take the case of being a doctor. As AI comes on, how does that change in the future? What skill sets you need, what you're going to look at for training, and how you think about expertise? And I'll go ahead and take the cards while they're answering.
Let me step back and answer this question in a general way. I think you need to be miles deep and miles wide. And what I mean is, you have to have some degree of domain expertise. And this gaining that domain expertise requires a certain passion, love, interest, and you need that sort of this tenacity to stick with it, all right? That's your passion. You need a miles wide, meaning that you need to know as many subjects as possible. And in the era of AI, that's actually becoming easier. And you just have to basically ask the right question. Coming back to education, it is not about what they need to learn. It is about how do we get the kids to ask the right question? And how do we foster this interest instead of letting them sit in their brain rot? So watching all these videos, short form videos for hours, how do we transform this educational experience into something exciting?
Excellent. Which brings us right to Terry. You get a very general question. Would you, if you want to answer, you've already talked about how we can't predict it and not plan for next year, but despite that, do you want to make any predictions about the evolution of education?
Yeah, that's a good one. I think what'll happen is, because what we know about all resources, they're finite. Money, time, energy, focus. I think what is likely to occur, and it'll be a great thing, it'll be things that when I talk to leaders, educators, teachers, maximizing that time and optimizing that time is what's going to happen next. I think there's a lot of things that happen in education right now that are important, but they're not the highest use of the teacher in the room. So what we already know about some of the surveys that go out is that some people who know how to leverage AI, and I know Shani and Cassie and Stan, they all know stories of how people are leveraging this to differentiate and personalize and customize in a way that's never been possible before for our students. And think about our special needs students who have very unique gaps in the needs that they have. I think what's going to happen next is that level of personalization and differentiation that we've never been able to get to because we're so underfunded and undersupported, and there's just a finite amount of time. I think what's going to happen next is we're going to, by working together, really find the best possible ways to leverage this technology to make sure every kid feels connected, supported, and that even if they've got some deficiencies, that they get some extra supports, and they don't have to necessarily have a tutor or something like that. They're going to have somebody who kind of makes them feel like, hey, we've got this. And it'll free up, actually, I think, educators to do more of that personal connection part that is, we know, the most important part about education, that human to human. And I would just say in general, I think the framework that will always work here, I don't care if it's now or 5 years from now, is always going to be human designs how the AI is going to add value, and then always going to come back to the human to decide whether or not the AI did what we wanted it to do. And that human, AI, human is always going to be the cycle. It's got to be.
Excellent. So Shani, since I gave Terry the general education question, you get the slightly more specific one. Do you see any real differences happening in the future between the lower and the upper grades? Because that's, I think, a place people are often interested in.
I do, only in terms of type of access. So I see broadly for all grade levels the reevaluation and intentional design of a learning experience, and where AI can lend itself to enhancing and deepening that learning experience and deepen the thinking for students, regardless of age and grade level. But what that'll look like, I think, in concrete specifics, is the tools and the types of in experiences that students are having will have to vary by grade level, because it'll have to be developmentally appropriate, and our high school students are going to have to be prepared for college and career. And so what the experiences that they have will have to be a little bit more broad. They'll have to have a little bit more freedom to choose when and where and why to leverage AI to enhance and deepen that learning. And in the younger grades, they'll be building those foundational pieces so that they're ready to do that when they get to high school. So I think the ultimate learning goal will be the same, but the access and the specific experiences will be scaffolded.
Perfect. So Abik, I'm going to give you a choice. The question we agreed on was one that, is horrible. Are you willing to predict the next best thing in technology? I would never want to put you on the spot by that. But you can answer that. Are you willing to predict the next best thing? Or just the next thing that AI will surprise us? Or given how mean that question is, if there's a different question you'd like to answer, feel free.
Thank you so much, Michael. Very thoughtful. So here's what the way I'd like to answer this question. My good friend Heidi has an AI agent on her Mac Mini running at home, and she texts with it every day and tells it to create a fitness plan, a meal plan, That's today, we have that. How can we bring this to schools? So when I think about a classroom with maybe one student who's struggling in a certain topic or concept in math, maybe the AI agent that's always running notices that student that's struggling in that topic in math, comes up with a personalized module for that student, sends it to that student, schedules a 10-minute check-in with the teacher the next week for that student, and sends a supportive note to the parent of that student and says, hey, this is a concept that this student would need help with. Here's how you can help them. The reality is every teacher would love to do that, but they can only scale so much. If AI can do the administrative work for you, when that student is in front of the teacher and they're talking to them one-on-one about that concept, the teacher can really lean in and support them, because AI took all the heavy load of noticing that, creating the module, setting up the meeting, emailing the parents, and now the teacher can spend that one-on-one time with the student. That's my hope and dream for where AI can take education.
Excellent. I love it. Okay, so we got some questions from the audience. I think we have, if my watch is still working, 3 to 4 minutes? Yeah, 4. Okay, 3 minutes. because people always talk long, myself included. So the questions are interesting. I'm hoping we gave you a little bit of comfort. They are about the challenges, and I have to say our panel's been very positive and optimistic. You can tell we're positive, optimistic people. And I'm going to blend them sort of into a single question, which will also serve as sort of our final thought lightning round. Just so you all know the source of the questions, one of them, excellent question about could this anticipate greater achievement gaps, outcome gaps, et cetera, et cetera. How do we get all ages to maximize their use of AI? The whole issue of working aside of AI versus relying it. The whole issue of policing AI usage and the ethics that Terry alluded to. And I think this is a really important one. Someone mentioned their 20-year-old. All three of my daughters are in their 20s. They're all looking for jobs. One of them has made the intelligent decision to go into animation at this moment in time. So you can imagine the stress in our family. But there's not just this, right? We recently came through COVID. We came through, all the issues with social media. You can imagine there's challenges now. So, given these very real challenges, and we don't want to minimize them, what is kind of your advice? And you can pick and choose from that space. And I think, Terry, you've already kind of answered it with the human and the guardrails. But let's, if you guys had like a 2 to 5 sentence little reflection on the challenges, we'll use that to wrap up.
Yeah, I feel like anything. I mean, it's a little bit like if all of a sudden everybody was given a chainsaw and we're like, hey, we're just going to let kids kind of figure it out on their own. It's like, no, we need to lean into this. We need to, especially if you're concerned about it, you need to come to the party. You need to figure out how does this not work? And the other thing that's very nuanced about this, and again, we do our best in education to prepare kids, and as they get closer to exiting out in the real world, we kind of narrow things down, like, do you want to do this? Do you want to do this? Well, the world outside there is going to be impacted in wildly different ways, whether you're in healthcare or whether you're an attorney and all those kinds of things. So from my perspective, I mean, we all need to be engaged in this conversation. It needs to be balanced, and we need to make sure that the people who are concerned about it have as much of a voice so that we can design as much as we can an option to avoid some of those downfalls, as well as obviously optimizing and leveraging the most powerful tool that's ever been available to humankind.
So I'm a physician and I deal with cancers, and I've long recognized the fragility of life. We're taking every moment we live for granted. That's the blessing of our species. Otherwise, we can't go forward. I'm also very fortunate. I just moved from New York to California. I get to live in the most beautiful part of the country, Orange County. You have sunshine, you have a beach, you forget all your problems. Fantastic. And I think the key is you have to remember, where do you focus on? You can focus on the fear, or you can focus on the positive. You cannot ignore it, but you have to focus on the positive aspect of it. Otherwise, you're just going to go downhill, you lose hope. I have no idea. I think we're living in the most exciting time and most scary time. I don't have any advice, but this is the first time I met with Abik, and I'm going to volunteer him because whatever he talked about just now, his team is going to build it in 2 weeks.
That's right. So everybody go use Gemini. Okay. The way I think about your question is we as a species have some human needs, obviously health, happiness, but we want to be entertained, we want to communicate, we want to be productive, and the tools to do those things have changed over time, from when we were hunter-gatherers to when we started becoming an agricultural society to industrialization. The tools to do those things have changed, and AI is a tool. And I would really encourage us to lean in, or your kids to lean into video production. What is that? Okay, it's an attempt to create something that entertains, dazzles. How do I use AI to do that? And how do I do something that's way better than anyone could do without AI? Is your daughter or son going to be the one to figure that out? That would be my challenge to all of us, is look at the higher goal that you're pursuing, whether it's health or communication, whatever it is, and try to use AI to make that much better than we ever could.
I should have spoken first. I think the cliche quote of "with great power comes great responsibility" comes to mind, and I think as optimistic as we've been here tonight, I think it's really important to acknowledge some of the risks that exist with such a great power. And I think that it's critical in order to address some of those risks that we can't be all in one camp or another, right? Like too often there's this polarization of it's all this or it's all that. And I think with AI, it's critical for us to address it in a very nuanced and balanced approach so that we're keeping the focus in our context on what do students need to thrive. And in this new world, what does that mean? And how do we keep our focus there? And right now, our students need to know how to navigate these tools. They need to know some of the safeguards. They need to know that they can experiment and explore safely. And they need to have access to create amazing and wonderful things so that they can continue that success outside of our institution. So if we keep our focus there and we stay kind of in tune with both sides of that spectrum, I think we'll keep charging forward and serving our students.
Excellent. So I will just close with the thought. I don't know how many of you know this, but Socrates predicted the end of all civilization when writing occurred, because he was convinced humans would never be able to remember anything ever again once you could write it down. You can look it up. This is real. And this has happened multiple times. And I think one of the things to help our children really understand, it feels new and different, but we've been through it before. And we will be through this and come out really awesome. So with that, I want to thank you all. The event is officially over. I also want to, Netta has a lot of faith in me. I was whispered to share our exciting $200,000 grant in AI. Is that all I need to say, or is there something more? Okay, we have an exciting $200,000 grant in AI. I always get worried I'm supposed to know more. But there's still more food, so clearly you have failed in your task. So eat real quickly before you leave. And again, thank you all for coming. None of this is possible without you, and we really appreciate your presence here. Thank you, and thank you to the panel. That was amazing.